You know that feeling, right? You've got a word you love, you use it with your friends, and then one day, bam, it shows up in a corporate memo or a cringy ad. Well, that feeling? It's called the corporate death curse. And today, we're going to look at how, for the first time ever, we can actually measure it.
I mean, we've all been there. The second a word you thought was cool pops up in some brand's tweet, it's just over. It's dead. This quote just nails that feeling, and it's the exact problem we're going to dig into. For the longest time, this has just been, a cultural mystery. We know when a word becomes cringe. It's a gut feeling. But what if we could go beyond that? What if data could actually solve this whole mystery for us?
And that really brings us to the big question here. Can you really, truly prove the exact moment a word loses its cool? Well, it turns out the answer is a resounding yes. And the data? It's absolutely fascinating.
So, how in the world do you quantify something as slippery as cool? Well, you need a pretty sophisticated detective's toolkit. And for this project, a model was built from the ground up to tackle this very specific cultural question.
And we're not talking about a small sample size here. The project looked at almost 1,800 different slang terms. That created this massive data set to really find the hidden patterns of what makes a word live and what makes it die. So to actually measure coolness, the model breaks it down into these key factors. It's looking at everything, from how long the word is to whether it started as a meme, and, this is a big one, when it starts being used ironically, especially by older groups. You know what I'm talking about. And all of those different factors, they all feed into this single crucial metric, the coolness decay score. Honestly, you can just think of it like a countdown timer for a word, predicting exactly how much time it has left before it's officially over. Okay, so with the method all laid out, now we get to the really juicy part, the evidence. Welcome to the Slang Mortality Report. And trust me, some of these findings are staggering. Right off the bat, the scale of this problem is just, wow. A massive 68% of all the slang that was analyzed is already mainstream or totally dead. That means only about a third of it can still be considered genuinely cool. So how fast does this whole process happen? Well, on average, a slang term goes from its absolute peak of coolness to being killed off by corporate use in just 159 days. That is barely 5 months. The life cycle is incredibly short. And here's a finding that is both hilarious and, get this, statistically proven. The moment millennials start adopting a slang term, its coolness decay score absolutely tanks by an average of 63.3 points. And the data is so precise, there's a 95% confidence interval on that number. The millennial touch, as it turns out, is quantifiably lethal to slang. The analysis also points to where coolness is born these days. Slang that's native to TikTok has a way higher average coolness score than slang from, say, Twitter. Right now, TikTok is pretty much the main incubator for what's cool. And if you're sitting there wondering, okay, but how reliable is all of this? The model is able to predict the death date of a slang term with an incredible 83% accuracy. This isn't just a fun theory, it's a verifiable, data-driven system. So after all that, what have we actually learned? Well, this whole investigation really gives us a final verdict in the form of a few clear, memorable laws of cool. Let's look at two of the most powerful forces at play here. Acronyms? They have a really strong positive correlation with staying cool. Why? Well, because they're a form of gatekeeping. You have to be in the know to get it. But on the flip side, ironic usage has a huge negative correlation. Once people start using a term ironically, it is a massive red flag that it's on its way out. And here are some real examples. Terms like GPOY, which means gratuitous picture of yourself, or RYB for read your Bible, and even POT for plain old telephone. They all keep these incredibly high coolness scores. And it's because they aren't obvious to the mainstream. That's exactly why they work. This right here perfectly sums up why this project is such a game changer. See, standard tools can tell you how many people are using a word, but this analysis, it tells you how they're using it and what that says about its cultural relevance. It's not about counting, it's about understanding. But wait, there is one last, absolutely fascinating twist to the story. It seems that in the process of observing and measuring this curse, we might have actually made it stronger. It's this wild meta-paradox. The act of observing something often changes it. And now that everyone, especially marketers, can understand the rules of the game, the life cycle of slang is probably going to get even faster. The curse is accelerating. And all of this leaves us with one final and kind of provocative question. In a world where we can predict the death of a word with 83% accuracy, does that mean the end of authentic underground cool? Can language ever truly rebel again? Definitely something to think about.